Why is it that the pro players in Deadlock have the most cracked out aim ever, but you still can't hit the broadside of a barn? Spoilers, your settings are probably not correct, and after you follow the steps in this video, your aim will have already improved drastically, and in 2 weeks from now, you're gonna be at a level way higher than you are currently. Not clickbait, let's get right into it. We're gonna talk about something that I'm really passionate about, and there will be things that you probably haven't thought about, and yeah, we're gonna try to cover everything. And we'll get right into it. So when people think about aiming in Deadlock, they are really overestimating their skill. When you think of average aim, it's actually quite bad because people that have average aim have not practiced their aim and they probably haven't even put on the right settings to make their aim better. So I think you can get above average aim in any video game, and especially Deadlock, with quite low effort, I want to say. The very first question that I always get, what do you actually look at when you're aiming, right? Do you look at your crosshair? Do you look at directly at the crosshair, or do you look at the person that you're shooting? Very good players actually almost exclusively look at the target they're shooting. If you ask a really good player to turn their crosshair off, which we'll get into crosshairs in a bit, they can probably track almost as good without having a crosshair in front of them because they focus on the enemy's movement and everything else should come naturally. Aiming is two parts. One is like analyzing the situation with the eyes, which is 50% of it really. Your eyes is 50% of your aim, and the other 50% is like converting it into like the mechanical aim you have. If you are staring at your target, you get all the important info you need. In Deadlock, there would be something like you immediately can tell if a target is about to dash or if a target is about to jump. And that's really what makes it easy for you in your head subconsciously to adjust to aim. And I'll give you a clip here that shows this really well in my opinion. All right, so in this clip, I'm shooting a warden, and he has very erratic movement, really fast, but as you can see, I react to it very fast. If we slow it down here, what actually matters is, what I do here in this situation is, I just look at the character in front of me. And if we slow it down, you can immediately tell once they start doing something important, which is, this is the first spot here where you can tell he's starting a slide, right? I can see immediately when he like starts ducking down and starting a slide. I don't look at the crosshair in front of me. In fact, right now my crosshair is on nothing, right? But like that millisecond, as soon as I realize in my brain that he's starting a slide, I immediately adjust, and that is subconsciously, right? And then I do it again, and you look and I see him walking up, right? And I immediately go up again, and you just by looking at his movement, it's very easy if you slow it down to be able to tell how he's moving, right? He goes up and down, and I feel like a lot of players would have missed quite a lot more. This was actually very good movement by him, that's why I picked it up, and if we played in full speed, right? The adjustment that I have is actually quite fast, and I don't consciously think about it. So that's like an example of why you want to practice or start out practicing always looking at the enemy, okay? That's like the first thing I want you to realize when you're aiming or you're starting to aim after watching this video. Next thing, sense. This always gets asked, you know, you watch a streamer, they have really good aim and they're like, okay, I'm gonna copy this guy's sense, right? Like, let me figure out what his sense is, and you copy it 1-to-1, and then nothing really changes. In fact, sometimes your aim gets worse, right? And then you keep on readjusting aim, right? Like sometimes you have that issue where you try to aim at a character and you always over aim, you go too far and then you adjust it down, right? And then the week later, it feels like it didn't really change and you adjust it again. What I want you to know about senses, it's actually not very important for aiming at all. The important part is sticking to a sense and practicing with it, okay? Like a really good player will be able to change the sense to anything reasonable and probably perform like almost at the maximum they can perform. And I'll give you here a rundown, like a good sense to start with and then how to stick to it, okay? So, first thing you should know about sense, before we go into anything, just technicalities. If you didn't know this, a lot of people don't know this. The higher your DPI, the lower your input lag. And what I recommend and what most like high-level players play on nowadays is 1600 DPI, which means your mouse reacts faster. It helps. Not by a lot, but it helps, right? So I would set your sense to 1600. Now, if you're here and you're using 800, all you have to do is double your DPI in your mouse options, right? And then half your DPI in-game, because double the DPI means double the speed. So all you have to do to feel the exact same way is halving your sense in-game, and it will feel the exact same. It's just going to be more responsive, okay? It's a free life hack, basically, okay? Now, to start off with the sense that you should run in Deadlock. So what I run is 0.42, but this doesn't matter. Here is a blueprint that I'll give you, okay? If you are wrist aiming, your sense should be around 0.4 with 1600, and if you're arm aiming, your sense should be around 0.25, and then you can adjust up or down. Here comes the fun part. How do we figure out what your aiming style is? It's actually very simple. All you have to do is, you look at your arm, you look at your mouse. If you're doing most of your adjustments with your wrist, okay? Like, so if you're moving mostly your wrist to aim, you're a wrist aimer, and if you are the type of person that uses the entire arm to aim, you're an arm aimer, okay? And the reason that matters is if you're doing arm aiming, you are obviously gonna want a lower sense because you're gonna do wider movements, right? And you will have to lower your sense down a bit because otherwise you're gonna over aim. So for arm aiming, I recommend starting around 0.25, assuming you're using 1600 DPI. For wrist, it's the complete opposite. You're doing very minor movements with your hand. You want to be able to do like a 180 quite comfortably, at least, right? Without like moving your arm a lot because you're wrist aiming. And that's why I recommend like starting around 0.4. That's usually the sweet spot to where you still can aim reasonably. Again, this is just a blueprint. You can, after using those settings and trying them for a few hours maximum, adjust them up or down. Yeah, everyone is different, and again, none of these aim styles is better than the other, okay? If you feel like you should go for what you feel comfortable with, it doesn't matter how well you optimize the bicycle, right? Your tool, you should go for what is most comfortable for you. Now, back to arm positioning, okay? And you can follow along again. Or your forearm should be like around halfway on the mouse pad, okay? That's like the sweet spot. For some of you, it might be a bit higher. For some of you, it might be like almost all the way. Usually you don't want to have your elbow on your mouse pad. Reason being is if you have your elbow on your mouse pad, it's going to be very sluggish to do adjustments. You're going to get slowed down and it's going to like drag across the mouse pad. And if you only have your wrist on your mouse pad and nothing else, you're not going to have support on your hand, right? When you don't have support on your hand, it's going to feel very jitterish, okay? Now, another important thing, and I can't really show this off without like completely twisting my camera, is chair height. What you want to go for, let's hope you have an adjustable chair, your arm wants to be comfortably resting on the mouse pad, ideally around like this angle where it's like, just like straight. And what you want to look out for is your shoulder, okay? So your shoulder, when you are sitting comfortably, it shouldn't be like up where you have to lift it up to aim. Like it shouldn't feel like uncomfortable, and it doesn't want to slug down. So you want a comfortable shoulder position. So you adjust your chair height based on your shoulder position and how comfortable it is, okay? Some people like arm rests. I think it's personal preference. I don't use mine. It has one, but I make it a bit lower because anything around my arm that feels like uncomfortable, probably not ideal, okay? Next thing, two different aim styles, right? One is called tracking, if you haven't heard of it, and I don't know why my camera is lagging, sorry. And one is called flicking. Depends on what character you're playing in game, really. If you are playing a character that has like a slow fire rate, flicking is the way to go. So on Lady Guys, you have very few bullets in the magazine, right? So it's very essential that you hit every single one of your bullets, right? Like it's a hit or miss, and because you're shooting so slow, if you're not waiting between every shot, or if you're not making sure you hit your bullet, you're gonna miss, okay? The first thing you should do is, when you play one of those slower rate fire characters like Lady Geist or something like a Holiday, right? Like slow firing characters, you wanna make sure to not hold down mouse 1 while you're shooting. You wanna shoot and every time click, right? You wanna manually click. Now there is a caveat to that in Deadlock, which is once you get to like a higher fire rate, which every hero gets, right? Assuming you build like gun items, right? So once you get to like higher fire rate and the fire rate is fast enough, you're gonna miss out on damage, because if let's say I'm in the later game and I get my fire rate up, suddenly if I do the same thing where I manually click, I'm gonna miss out on damage, right? If I make sure to hit every bullet, I'm gonna miss out on damage. So in this situation, it's probably just better eventually to hold down mouse 1, which brings me to tracking characters. Any character that shoots very fast on base level is a tracking character. On those characters, you really don't want to stop holding down mouse 1. It's not super essential for me to hit every bullet, right? I'm not going to burst fire on Wraith. There's like no spread in this game, right? So you don't want to reset your aim. You just want to hold down mouse 1. There's one exception actually, which I'm going to mention real quick, which is Venator. This is the only character in the game that has increasing spread on his bullets. So when Venator starts shooting, he's actually 100% accurate with his bullets, And then, yeah, after a few bullets, I don't know what it is, I think it's around like 7 to 8, he starts spreading his bullets, okay? Which means if you're shooting someone on longer distance on Venator, the first few bullets, one of them's inaccurate, and now notice how we start missing, right? Because the spread comes in. This is only Venator right now. So what you want to do on Venator is, after like 7 or so bullets, you want to use one of your abilities, stop shooting for a second, just to reset your spread. I know this is like a very niche case scenario, but yeah. So for tracking characters, the number one thing you want to make sure you have is smooth movement. What I mean with smooth movement is, if you're tracking anything on your screen, it needs to be a smooth motion, okay? The reason it needs to be smooth, a lot of people have this like flicker aim. I'm gonna over exaggerate it here real quick, okay? Where they go like, where they readjust like very aggressively and they tense their mouse arm a lot. Every single one of those points where you like readjust with your flicks is a drop-off point where you start missing bullets, right? So this is like a smooth motion is the number one thing you want to look out for. Just following a moving target and making sure you have a very smooth motion. If you end up missing, you know, a bot that is very predictable, in this case, I'm gonna do it well now because I'm gonna pay attention. So if you feel like you're missing more than a few bullets, you're either tensing your arm too much, or you don't have the smooth tracking down yet. But that's something you can very easily correct with practice. Kovacs or Aim Labs does really help with it, okay? Where there is a lot of scenarios where you just download the game and you go into specific scenarios, you just type in smooth in the browser, and there's gonna be a lot of scenarios where it's just smooth spheres that move around left, right, up and down. And if you practice those scenarios a tiny bit every day, and I mean like 10 to 20 minutes max, that's all you need, your smoothness in terms of aiming is gonna go up significantly, okay? It's gonna help you a lot. And again, in Deadlock, everyone becomes a tracking hero in the late game, or a lot of characters become tracking heroes, because every hero's fire rate does go up over the game, right? It doesn't matter if you buy gun items or not. Even if you pick up gold statues, your fire rate is going to go up. So tracking in Deadlock is actually really important. So you really want to make sure you have like smooth movement. And if you're following someone, you want to have as little like micro adjustments like that as possible. So if you're deciding to aim train, doesn't matter if you're doing it in-game or outside of game, reduce it to 30 minutes maximum per day. There is something like, there is diminishing returns in this, just like with anything else, right? Like if you go to the gym, you work out, you know, eventually your muscles are gonna grow tired, your central nervous system is gonna grow tired. So I know this sounds like pretty cheesy, right? Like, but it's the same thing. And the rest of the time should be spent playing the game if you have the free time. Now, if you don't want to use an aim trainer and you want to do this in-game, there is a few things you can do. There is a few mods you can download that have like specific aim training, but you can very easily, if you want to warm up, do this in practice range. So all you have to do is you put down a few bots, right? And all you want to do is, at the start, is go from bot to bot. And you notice how I'm not warm right now, where you want to go from bot to bot and just make sure you hit the bullets every time, okay? And I know this seems very rudimentary, but like this is really gonna get your eyes and your body adjusted to like having the right flick distance, okay? Now, after you do this for a bit consistently, and you get consistent with this, what you want to start including is movement, right? In a real game of Deadlock, you will have to move just like the enemy and you will have to dodge. So you want to start including having movement in the game and moving your own character while still like hitting those shots. And this can be as advanced as you want it to be, right? You can start sliding during it and just keeping track of the enemies. And I know this seems like very basic, right? But it does help. And again, Kovacs is probably a tiny bit better at this than like just having this. I'm sure down the line, once Deadlock becomes more advanced, they'll have more options for like movement practice or aim practice. But you can make your own aim against stationary targets harder by just simulating movement you would have in-game, right? And this is like really what you want to aim for, where you just like keep on hitting the targets consistently while having erratic movement yourself. Remember when I talked about eyes, right? And how the eye is actually 50% of your overall aim. The eye is a muscle like any other muscle, and it does get fatigued. Following an object with your eye is 50% of the work. So there's a website called eyetrainer.gg. It's free. And all you have to do is you open this up and you just follow the little dot with your eye, okay? And again, there's a lot of players that play Kovacs and aim labs professionally, like the cracked out aimers, that unironically use this to warm up before they even touch a mouse, where they just follow this. And this is gonna help you with a lot of things, okay? So you might have eye strain, you might have an issue with like your eyes growing tired during gaming. And if you stare at a screen for a long time, which most of us probably do, right? We live like online chronically. Your eyes, because they are a muscle, if you stare at one point, they're gonna tire out. So if you have to move your eyes left or right, it's an eye movement, it's an eye muscle movement. And it might feel like if you're doing that right now, it's kind of hard for me actually. Like just trying to move your eyes from left to right without like moving your head. This is an exercise you can do very easily to relax your eyes, to train your eyes, and just do this again for a few minutes where you just follow the dots, okay? So next thing that's kind of Deadlock specific, if you came from Apex, you will know about this. There's bullet velocity in the game, and this is very hero specific to your character, and it doesn't matter if it's really high fire rate like Wraith. If we move a bit further away and I just aim at the head directly, you will notice I miss a lot of bullets. Which means on long distance, no matter what your hero is, you will miss more, okay? Even if you have god aim. And I'll give you a very obvious example here on Warden, right? Warden's base bullet velocity is actually quite low. And there will be situations in the game where you will fight someone that is longer distance. And just by the nature of RNG, if they AD strafe, right, and they move further away from you, it doesn't matter if you have perfect movement, you will miss some of the bullets because they will just have velocity, okay? And that's why, by the way, you see a lot of high-level players buy bullet velocity, or high-velocity rounds, sorry. You buy this item for the simple reason of just being more consistent long range, okay? It's not gonna magically make your aim better, but it's really something to consider, and it's actually very core in Warden because, like, suddenly, you're gonna hit a lot more bullets because the RNG factor of is the person gonna move left or right is gonna disappear. TLDR for you, the characters you play, you should know roughly how the bullet velocity is, and in-game try to compensate if you're on longer range. And longer range really starts around like 20 meters. Anything before that, you can probably directly aim at them. And this is really not a sellout. I might have an issue, but a big factor in my opinion is your mouse and your mousepad. Probably used around 100 mice in my life, and I have like a stack of like 100 mousepads. Definitely too much, okay? I'm not saying be like me, okay? And I'm not telling you go out and buy the best stuff. You being comfortable with your grip on your mouse is very essential to how well you're gonna aim. Because if you tense your, like, let's imagine you have a small mouse for your hand. If you tense your hand a lot, if you have to like hold it very tight and to even aim properly, it's gonna tire you out, right? If you have used a mouse for years, it might feel natural to you, but if you wanna play for longer than an hour, eventually your hand is gonna grow tired, okay? It's just like any other muscle, your hand muscle is gonna grow tired. So it's kind of important to have a mouse that at least fits your grip and makes you hold your mouse comfortable without feeling too uncomfortable for you, okay? And I have 2 suggestions here that I'm gonna give you. And again, this is not like an invitation for you to like go out and buy them, but like I really recommend the GPX. One is the GPX1 and one is the GPX2. One is a budget, I wanna say, budget-friendly mouse. On sale, you can get it for like 60 bucks. And the other one is a bit more expensive. The reason I recommend the GPX is it's a universal shape out of all the mice I've used, and again, I've used hundreds. I always go back to this mouse. I'm not gonna lie to you, it might be different for you, but like it's really a universal shape that works for most hand sizes, and most people that I recommended this mouse never go back to anything else. It's just, that's why it's used by so many pros. It's not because Logitech is a big sponsor. It is really just like a super universal mouse and a super universal mouse shape. And worst case scenario, right, you order them and you don't like them, you send them back. There is optimizations you can do. There's like a website where you can put in your hand size and it's gonna give you like mouse recommendations, right? Like if you have really big or really small hands, there is probably other mice that are better for you. But for the average consumer, for the average guy or girl even, I think this mouse works for almost everyone. I know some people, probably in this call, are playing on their desk mat that is like 10 years old, or they're playing, or worse, they're playing on their desk or something. In my opinion, mouse pads matter almost as much as mice for the reason I just explained to you, okay? And this is a really easy test you can do right now to figure out if you're struggling with that issue. It is part of being smooth. So all you want to do here really is you go into any game or even on your desktop and you try to draw a smooth line from left to right, and you try to keep the same velocity, okay? It should look smooth, okay? And if you're struggling with that, that probably means that your mousepad is worn out or that there's unevenness in the mousepad, okay? And this happens over time. So again, not an invitation to go out and buy shit, but I'll give you 2 recommendations. One is really budget friendly. It's a new SteelSeries mousepad that just came out and I think you can get it on sale for like 20 bucks. And the other one, I use Artisan mousepads. I recommend the Heian or the Hayato Otsu. I'm using the Hayato Otsu right now. They're very expensive pads, but they last like for a lifetime, or like they last for a very long time, and I never go back with them. Another point, the more frames you have in the game, the smoother your aim is, okay? If you have a lot of stutters, it does affect your aim just as much. So if you have not yet, I'm not going to tell you to buy a new PC now, Piggy's settings guide has all the settings you need for Deadlock and you're going to have more frames. That's, by the way, the reason when you watch most pro players play, that's the reason they have everything on low, right? Like most people don't care about the graphics, and on a very basic setting, if you don't want to go too deep into it, you want to put your settings on low so you can still, you know, you don't want to see the pixels, you still want to have like decent resolution, but put your settings on low just so you have more frames, so it's going to be easier for you to aim. And now we're gonna get into the life lessons. And again, this is not a meme, but it's really important to understand. I'm a medicinal chemist. The reason I'm bringing that up is I know some theory in biology, and most of you guys probably know this, but sleep is actually really important, okay? When you study and you don't sleep enough, right, it's not gonna pick up in your brain. If you work out and you don't sleep enough, your muscles are not gonna grow as much. So getting consistent sleep, 7 to 8 hours a day, is actually really important. It does really make a big difference. Just playing Deadlock in general, most of the learning you're gonna do is not by playing a lot, it's the sleep after, okay? So the sleep period after. Doesn't mean if you get like, you know, if you have like a period of time of like a week where you get like 4 or 5 hours a night where you're gonna be cooked and you're never gonna be good again, but it is like, think of sleeping as like the learning process. I know some people always go, I sleep 4 hours a night and I feel fine, right? That's, some people are used to it and they think 4 hours of sleep is enough, but there have been hundreds, thousands of studies that have proven no matter how you feel, even if you feel rested because you're so used to that sleeping schedule, that 7 hours on average plus is necessary for the body to regenerate and learn fully. I would recommend that's the #1 thing you should change in your life to actually just have better performance in everything, okay? Life, love, work, and gaming, okay? Another thing I want to talk about, people think that their reaction time goes down with age, and especially Deadlock, right? It's a more mature crowd, which I really like. People feel like, you know, I'm like pushing 30, I'm like 30 plus, I will not get my reaction time down to how I was at like 18 years old. There's also multiple studies that show that good sleep and good diet is way more important than your age, okay? So if you are 30 plus or 25 or whatever your age is and you sleep well, you're gonna perform better than a 16-year-old that doesn't sleep enough. If you look at Counter-Strike, by the way, great example, most of the Counter-Strike pros, they're pushing 30 now, or they're 30, right? There's of course new talent coming in, but a lot of players in those games are actually older, which just goes to show your age doesn't really matter as much as how much you take care of your body. Last thing I wanna talk about is a lot of people think that aiming comes like naturally, and a lot of people have that idea of like, I always had bad aiming games, it's my genes, right? Like pro players are pro players or high level players are high level players because of the time and effort that they put in. I'm not saying like natural talent doesn't matter. Some people learn faster, some people learn slower. I know people in Overwatch, there was a guy I worked with that started out in bronze. He was like absolutely terrible at the game, and now he's actually playing in Pro League. He's making hundreds of thousands of dollars playing pro in Overwatch, and he started off as a complete noob. The practice and the effort you put in is way more important than any talent you might have, okay? And that goes for everyone. That goes for Idorian, that goes for Zergy. Anyone, I believe, can get good at aim if they practice. That's really about it. But yeah, I hope that was somewhat helpful. I know it wasn't like that's really all I can give you for aim, other than practice, practice, practice. Smile.